We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. And once again, I was a bit behind the ball. Earlier today, I was just trying to do some research on transhumanism, human brain interfaces, or BCI's, brain-computer interfaces, as they are largely referred to in the white papers that have really been around now, decade upon decade upon decade. We're going to talk about that. But what is really interesting about what we're going to do right now is how much has been fast-tracked in the arena of Neuralink, Musk, and human brain chips. And the admissions by Musk in the very beginning that indeed these have been going for decades, but then he plays it down and talks about the primitive nature of them. I need people to understand right now that Elon Musk is a military-industrial complex defense department contractor / vehicle to commercialize the hardware that has been developed and driven by black projects, DARPA, and NASA post-World War II. Now, and now we are starting to see that technology be refined and commercialized and normalized to the public. So 3 days ago, Musk gave this presentation that's about an hour long. And at first, I thought, I'm going to do a quick story on it. I'm going to grab a couple clips. It's an hour-long presentation. And, in and out. Absolutely not. After watching this thing start to finish, we're going to watch it start to finish. This is more than likely going to be done over 2 broadcasts, as this is an hour. And I am sure I'm not going to be able to hold the commentary because, number one, the way that this has been driven into the public arena is one in which they're showing you people who are disabled. And technology can empower humanity and it can enslave humanity. And quite frankly, if I was in any of these people's situations with paralysis or ALS, I would want this technology. Okay? But it is outlined very clearly, not only in the past, in science fiction, which is referenced here, but by Musk and these other programmers, and there are several of them that are going to come up and give demonstrations. It's Musk at first, and then the co-founder, And then you have another individual that really starts showing you some of the nuance features, including, as I think people have already seen, and it has been demonstrated, the use of a device like this, virtually, to play Call of Duty against another individual in the same situation. On top of that, towards the end, and probably it is mentioned earlier in the presentation, but we probably won't get into this one until tomorrow, the retinal operation. So number one, they're talking about telepathy and telekinesis through these devices, although they make it sound voluntary. But when you see their data and their numbers, I mean, I would question all of that. And I would also take anything that's demonstrated here with a grain of salt as to how solid this technology is, because it's not like you just put it in. You have to train these things. And this has always been an argument of mine. We've had BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, that were non-invasive. Non-invasive. Okay? In other words, no surgery whatsoever at all. That you would wear. And yes, it can read the different brain waves and lengths and neurons firing, and then you train that on a model. On this very broadcast, on this very YouTube channel, we've shown you, in fact, you want to go to YouTube, you can watch that over a decade. And they train it to do certain things. Okay? Kind of the actions that you see here on a minimal level. Now, if that technology, okay, was driven and pushed the way this is, it would be light years beyond what we're seeing now, and it would erase the need for this to be internal, which is the absolute goal. And it will be a cold day in hell before Jason Bermas gets a Neuralink or anything like it. But they're really also trying to, again, normalize this right now for when they do push it full commercial level, which in the next couple of decades, to me right now is an inevitability. Okay. So we're going to do the presentation. Again, there's so much of this that I'm probably going to be stopping it every couple of minutes. But, you tell me what you think in the comments down below, as well as if you're in the live stream right now. Let's thumbs this up. Subscribe, share, let everybody know about the broadcast. If you can financially support me, it's been a while since someone's bought a coffee, guys. We could really use your support, $5, $10, $15. Big donors, you absolutely mean the world to me. Let's get into it. So as I stated before, and the way this presentation actually kicks off. Oh, sorry about that. We got our guys right there. And nope, not that either. We're just hitting wrong buttons. The move has always been to cure paralysis, to have somebody in a Stephen Hawking type position be able to communicate. And right now, wild things are being speculated and said about the nature of artificial intelligence itself. Forget about brain-computer interfaces. I see posts now that basically, if you remember Homer Simpson's brother, remember the Danny DeVito episode? The first one, it's all about Homer ruining his car business. The second one is after he's become homeless, he comes back into the picture and he devises this device that allows cats and dogs to talk to their owners to remake his millions. Well, now they're saying with AI that's going to happen. Highly skeptical. Okay, but right now we are in the phase, what? It's people who are paralyzed, who are injured, and that's how this kicks off, by the way. And then we're also going to get into robotics and that aspect, because that is also there, and automation. So, NPR, click, speak, move. These brain implants are poised to help people with disabilities. And of course, it's not just the United States. It's not just Neuralink. You have BlackRock, and then you have China. Now, China, has a different method in doing this. So for those that don't know, we've gone over it here, and they show you this thing. It's a robot brain surgery. They're trying to say that this is going to be so prevalent, it's going to be like at a kiosk in like a mall. And you're going to go in like you got your ear pierced. And the robot's going to do badingo, badongo all the way. Okay? This, although not completely invasive, is going through a stent in your neck, in your jugular, to your brain. All right? But ultimately, I think that we also have to address the fact that in a lot of these white papers, when they're talking about non-invasive, they're not even talking about wearables, although that technology is real. They're talking about aerosolized nanotech. And I know that sounds like bonkers, but once again, we've shown you Ray Kurzweil, prominent position at Google. Remember, Google has their own little immortality division called Calico. And he talks about a time where there are essentially multiple billions, tens of billions of nanobots residing in all of us. Like it or not, it's the new species, ain't human anymore. And at a whim, those nanobots are going to shut off our receptors and our endorphin centers, in one sense, to this reality and create a virtual one. Now, I don't know if I buy that or I adhere to it. I think it's rather nightmarish. But that is what these people say. And I've always had a pretty good memory. I remember these things. And there's been a lot of overpromises. But at the end of the day, I've seen this technology push forward. And I've seen this agenda to push this technology forward in a certain way be, again, one that is not positive, that does not empower human beings, but instead ultimately will enslave them. So without further ado, let's kick off this watch along. And we're like I said, we're going to be stopping at a lot.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Toddling. I'm the second participant in the Neuralink study, and I'm here to count us down to the demo. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I mean, no offense. I gotta stop it right in the very beginning. So you've got what I said from the beginning. You incorporate this person who has a disability and you're sympathetic to, and then you incorporate robotics, but not just any robotics, humanoid robotics. And you notice they're all like branded as one color scheme, right? Because Tesla also has their humanoid robot, the Optimus robot. Hand looks just like that. You get the countdown, you get the logo, and then you've got the Musker Nuts himself coming out like a Tom Cruise character in Magnolia, mixed with the Guy Pearce character in Prometheus. That's how I read it. That's what I'm seeing on the screen. Let's continue.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Neuralink presentation. This is an update for the progress of the Neuralink team. It's been an incredible amount of progress. This is, we're going to start off high level, generally describing what Neuralink's doing, and then we're going to have a very deep technical dive so you can actually get an understanding of what exactly we're doing at a granular level and what we can do to enhance human capabilities and ultimately build a great future for humanity. So those are neurons firing. It's funny to think that me talking right now is a bunch of neurons firing that then result in speech that you hear and cause neurons to fire in your brain. A part of this presentation is about demystifying the brain.
Let me just stop it right there. Can't help myself. Probably didn't even get a minute deep on Elon. Demystifying the brain. Okay? Now, number one, I would argue that where he goes from here really separates us from what we are as human beings. Okay? I often talk about our biological realities, especially within that trans to transhuman movement, right? And that's exactly what that is. But here he takes the brain and even consciousness, and he gives a pretty decent answer where I'm like, okay, I'm following him a little bit. Following him a little bit. I understand where he's bringing people. In other words, what is consciousness? They can't prove it. I agree with that. And even talks about the consciousness of everything around us that is also living and breathing. Okay? Essentially. And I think that's a good question. But he also goes into how we are our brains. And he uses the example. I'm going to let him use the example because I don't disagree with his example. But not that I buy into everything Rupert Sheldrake, but Rupert Sheldrake back in the day gave a really great presentation on X. And I've always contended there is something external, whether you want to call it a soul or a spirit, that connection is outside of our biological reality, but still extremely real, if that makes sense, if that's not a oxymoron or a conundrum for people. I think there are a large portion of things, obviously, about the nature of reality that we don't understand. But I'm gonna let the Musker dude take it away for a second and really give his description on why we are our brains.
It is a remarkable organ. I mean, we are the brain, basically. When you say you, that really is you're the brain. Like you can get a heart transplant, you can get a kidney transplant, but I don't know anyone who's gotten a brain transplant. So you are your brain. And your experiences are these neurons firing with trillions of synapses that somehow lead to conscious comprehension of the world. This is something that we have only begun to understand. We're really just barely at the beginning of understanding of what is the nature of consciousness. And I've thought a lot about what is consciousness? Where does consciousness arise? Because if you start at the beginning of the universe, assuming physics is true, the standard model of physics is true, then you have this Big Bang, the matter condensing into stars, those stars exploding. A lot of the atoms that are in your body right now were once at the center of stars. Those stars exploded, recondensed. Fast forward 13.8 billion years, and here we are. And somewhere along that very long journey, to us at least, consciousness arose.
Now, let me just stop it right there and talk about some misnomers that he gives. Okay. First of all, first and foremost, the idea that we're just learning about consciousness, that's not real. Okay. The truth of the matter is that you've had some of the top quote unquote scientific minds try to figure out what consciousness is and have no clue. And in fact, one of the main guys that started the first large language models that we know as artificial intelligence had set up to try to figure out what consciousness was and how the brain worked. And he'll admit he spectacularly failed. So what do they try to do? They're trying to mimic it. That's what all this is with artificial intelligence, is mimicking what consciousness is. But at least he's humble enough to admit that they're just starting to understand it. I don't know that they're understanding it any more than they did 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, this has been one of the other mysteries of the universe. Now, he also invokes this idea of the physics models being correct. You know, if you've been watching this show, you know, Mark Andreessen spilled the beans, but I've been talking about it for a very, very long time, that certain technologies have been classified, and they indeed change what we know as physics. Okay? And again, the nature of reality. And the one other thing that I'm going to say here before I let Musk continue, and it looks like this is going to be way more than a two-parter, because I think we do have to watch this whole thing. I mean, we're almost 20 minutes deep, and we've watched literally 3 minutes of this, is that he talks about the fact that if you assume that the Big Bang happened, all right, and all these people that push this transhumanism Johnny nonsense, okay, and this ultimate goal to become immortal gods, buy into this contract, this whole evolution game. Whether they actually believe it or not, that's another question, okay? But getting behind Darwin in the sense that they did, and I'm a big believer, big believer in microevolution, adaptation, you know, that adaptation within a species. I've never seen this whole species to species evolution that they talk about, nor the fossil record for it. So I have a big issue with that. And we just gloss over that thing. Well, again, those people at the top, that predator class, they're social Darwinists. They believe because they rule or they got to that point, they deserve to rule. All right? And that's a mainline perspective. I mean, I could probably go on for another 30 minutes. I won't. I'm going to let him speak on this subject and why, you know, Musk to me is that wolf in sheep's clothing.
The molecules started talking to each other. And it begs the question of what is consciousness. Is everything conscious? Maybe. It's hard to say where along that line. There's no sort of discrete point where consciousness didn't exist and then suddenly does exist. It seems to be maybe you have a condensation of matter that has a density of like we don't know what the real answer is. We don't know what consciousness is.
See, there's that blatant honesty. I mean, that is honest at least, because he doesn't know. And the other idea that, you know, that you would be able to record that if there is no conscious being to record when consciousness comes into play. And I'm not here preaching, okay? I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to be a deity. I'm not trying. That's the whole thing with all this AI too. It's going to know everything. It's going to know everything. No, we don't know everything. We program and create that. It doesn't know everything. Like that mindset is insane. We are imperfect beings on a mass level.
But with Neuralink and the progress that the company's making, we'll begin to understand a lot more about consciousness. And what does it mean to be? Along the way, we're going to solve a lot of brain issues where the brains get injured or damaged in some way, or didn't develop in quite the right way. There's a lot of brain and spine injuries that we'll solve along the way. And I do want to emphasize that this is all going to happen quite slowly, meaning you'll see it coming. Sometimes people think that suddenly there will be vast numbers of Neuralinks all over the place. This is not going to be sudden. You'll be able to watch it happen, you know, over the course of several years. And we go through exhaustive regulatory approvals. So this is not something that we're just doing, you know, by ourselves without government oversight. We work closely with the regulators every step of the way. We're very cautious with the Neuralinks in humans. That's the reason we're not moving faster than we are, is because we're taking great care with each individual to make sure we never miss.
So let's just stop. Some good admissions in there. All right. When he talks about working with the government regulators, again, this is the consumer product. When he talks about over the course of several years, he's being extremely honest here. Because remember, when he was first going on Rogan, he was talking about how this was going to happen then. That's because he knew the technology could do those things. Okay? And he wants to sell it on investors. Now, the other thing is, this has been done with black projects for such a long time, as we've shown you with Dennis Bushnell admitting in 2011, they'd done it to 10,000 people. And in 2018, I think it was 2018 at the FIRE conference, he says it's been a couple 100,000. These are the ones you're starting to see on television. Keep that in mind. So now, the way this looks to me is it's 2025, and over the next 5 years, you're going to see this more and more in medical patients, and probably around the 2030 marker, if these people continue to get their way, that's when you're going to see the first push for enhanced humans commercially. And you're going to see, influencers or people that want to be influencers do it and praise it and and everybody's going to be curious. And even guys like me will have to play their videos and talk about it. We're in a weird spot here. But here comes some other admissions by Musk that are important, again, that this technology has been utilized for decades. And I would encourage people to watch Truthstream Media's The Minds of Men to see really the documentation of a lot of that.
And so far we haven't, and I hope that continues into the future. Every single one of our implants in humans is working, and working quite well. And you'll get to hear from some of the people that have received the implants and hear it in their words. So what we're creating here with a Neuralink device is a generalized input-output technology for the brain. So it's how do you get information into or out of the brain, and do so in a way that does not damage the brain or cause any negative side effects.
And here's a big problem. Damage the brain, one thing. Quote unquote, negative side effects. One of the things I love that David Icke says is they're not side effects, mate. They're effects. So a company, a government, an individual entity that knows how to program these things with malicious intent, may be programming these things, what? For those effects, hardwired into somebody's brain.
So it's a very hard problem. And generally, the reactions I've seen to this range from it's impossible to it's already been done before. Those people should meet, actually. The reality is that there actually have been limited brain-to-computer interfaces for several decades on a very basic basis.
And again, that's the downplay. On a very basic basis. But I'm telling you right now, in the classified programs, you can only imagine. Again, these people are going to do everything they can to replicate the kind of things that were successful in classified programs. And just because they were successful in those classified programs doesn't mean it wasn't successful a dozen other times or 20 other times or 100 other times. The fact of the matter is, we're not going to know for a very long time, if ever, especially in the post-truth world where we are allowing artificial intelligence of varying degrees to be an authority and at the same time acknowledging that it lies all the time and just calling it hallucinations, when in fact it's not a hallucination, it's the programming of the model purposely.
What we're doing with Neuralink is dramatically increasing the bandwidth by many orders of magnitude. So you can a human bandwidth output is less than 1 bit per second over the course of a day. So there's 86,400 seconds in a day. It's very rare for a person to do more than 86,400 bits of output per day. You'd have to be really talking a lot or typing all day, and you might exceed that. So what we're talking about here is going from maybe 1 bit per second to ultimately megabits and then gigabits per second. And the ability to do consensual telepathy.
See that Freudian slip right there? Conceptual, I mean consensual telepathy. So once again, they always want to make it about the idea that you have a choice and you're going to allow your brain to be read or allow someone to communicate with you through their mind. He knows it's beyond conceptual at this point with this technology. A little smirkle on his face right there.
Now, the input to the brain is much higher, especially because of vision. Depending upon how you count it, it might be on the order of a megabit or in the megabit range for input, primarily due to sight. But even for input, we think that can be dramatically increased to the gigabit plus level. And a lot of the thinking that we do is we take a concept in our mind and we compress that into a small number of symbols. So when you're trying to communicate with somebody else, you're actually trying to model their mind state, and then take perhaps quite a complex idea that you have, maybe even a complex image or scene or kind of mental video, and try to compress that into a few words or a few keystrokes. And it's necessarily going to be very lossy. Your ability to communicate is very limited by how fast you can talk and how fast you can type. And what we're talking about is unlocking that potential to enable you to communicate, like I said, thousands, perhaps millions of times faster than is currently possible.
So let me just stop it right there. First of all, you'll notice how in this part of the process, he's moved away from the idea of just helping people walk again or communicate or even the telepathy, but into this idea that the information that we're taking in has a certain numerical bandwidth. Now, he's basically creating a metaphor, if you will, for back in the day, people, who were around Gen X style, when the internet first came around and it was on a phone line and you heard and it was 56 kilobytes, for an image, you might be waiting a minute or two to download an image, something that's instantaneous everywhere. And then it got a little bit better in the early 2000s, and there was highly compressed video. I mean, go to the old days of YouTube. Remember, people hadn't even gone to the high def levels. And now we're in that high def streaming world right now, where I have a gigabit bandwidth up and down, where I can stream across the world almost instantaneously with that information. But he's basically saying that the way that we communicate with each other is going to be totally and completely eradicated, and that there will be some kind of fast processing that won't even include verbalization. This is troublesome to me. And I think it should be for everybody else. That somehow, some way, we're going to be able to share large-scale ideas and debate the same way that you airdrop somebody a photo and it's there like that. Only it's a 20 to 30 minute philosophical debate, but that quick. Are we human at that point?
This is an incredibly profound breakthrough. This would be a fundamental change to what it means to be a human. So we're starting off with reducing human suffering, or addressing issues that people have, say if they've been in an accident or they have some neural disease that's degenerative, so they're losing capability to move their body, or some kind of injury, essentially. So enabling, our first product is called telepathy, and that enables someone who has lost the ability to command their body to be able to communicate with a computer and move the mouse and actually operate a computer with roughly the same dexterity, ultimately much more dexterity than a human with working hands. Then our next product is blind sight, which will enable those who have total loss of vision, including if they've lost their eyes or the optic nerve, or maybe have never seen, were blind, even blind from birth, to be able to see again. Initially low resolution, but
just gotta say this: you can't see again if you've never been able to see. And I would also say this about what they're building, just to reiterate the fact that this technology is DARPA driven. In my 2010 film, Invisible Empire, I talk about the type of retinal implants that he's discussing right now that were already interfaced with human beings. Put that movie out in 2010, 15 years ago. And as he's about to explain about the primitive nature of it at first, at the time, it was essentially as if they were seeing things not as much as like a heat recognition, if you were watching the quote-unquote Predator, right? But those type of shapes and objects for depth in that arena. Okay, but here, listen to what Musk says about this technology. And again, because it happened 15 years ago and now they're rolling it out, I totally agree with him.
Ultimately very high resolution and then in multiple wavelengths. So you could be like Geordi LaForge in Star Trek, and you can see in radar, you can see in infrared, ultraviolet, superhuman capabilities, cybernetic enhancement, essentially. And then along the way, this should help us understand a lot more about consciousness. What does it mean to be a conscious creature? We'll understand vastly more about the nature of consciousness as a result of this. And then ultimately, I think this helps mitigate the civilizational risk of artificial intelligence.
And by the way, take a look. Remember, in the very beginning, reduce human suffering. But then it immediately goes on the board to enhance human capabilities, Superman, understand and expand consciousness, this collective consciousness that they want to build artificially and control with invasive technologies, and then mitigate the risk of artificial intelligence, again, by trying to make you hive mind with it and be controlled with it and be hard-lined into it. Insanity. Ooh, that gets me a little worked up. We're going to go back to it in a moment. Can we get the thumbs up, by the way? Can we get 100 thumbs up? We got 130 people watching. I want to give a big shout out to Cheryl. Cheryl heeded the call on the broadcast, bought the 20 coffees. Big donor. Cheryl, thank you so much for supporting the broadcast. Also, guys, give me a follow on X. We've been really stagnant there. You know, the platform that we're paying for, this guy's platform that I pay to stream on, that I literally lose followers on. The only time I'm really gaining anybody kicking and screaming is going on to other people's shows. And then they come around and tell me that they never see my posts. So could use your support going up against, you know, the brain chip, SpaceX, space weapons, digging underground bases, narrative control guy. Could help that. That'd be great. Thank you.
We already sort of have three layers of thinking. There's the limbic system, which is your instincts, your cortical system, which is your higher level planning and thinking, and then the tertiary layer, which is the computers and machines that you interact with, like your phone, all the applications you use. People actually are already a cyborg. You can maybe have an intuitive sense for this by how much you miss your phone if you leave it behind.
I'm not a cyborg, bro. I'm not a cyborg. And look, and there's the smirkle again. I'm not a cyborg. You know how much I miss my phone when I leave it at home? I don't. Listen, I'll give you a great example. I called fights this weekend for Caged Aggression. You can get the replay of the cagedaggression.ppp, or I'm sorry, cagedaggression.tv, but it'll also be online next week. And normally, like I forgot at this time, I bring a separate phone and I tape it. And that's the phone I usually look at. I did not bring that phone. I didn't tape it, but I didn't touch my phone. I took a picture beforehand. I should have taken a picture with El Tigre, Josh Neal, my broadcast partner. I didn't do that, but that's how much I don't care. How much I don't care about this, I like it. It's a tool, bro. I'm not a cyborg. Okay? Repeat after me. I'm a human being, and I'm going to stay a human being.
Leaving your phone behind is it's almost like missing limb syndrome. Your phone is somewhat of an extension of yourself, as is your computer. So you already have this digital tertiary layer, but the bandwidth between your cortex and your digital tertiary layer is limited by speech and by how fast you can move your fingers and how fast you can consume information visually. But I think it's actually very important for us to address that input-output bandwidth constraint in order for the collective will of humanity to match the will of artificial intelligence.
Think about what he just said there. He's telling you, there's a reason that I have guys like G. Edward Griffin on the program and look up to them, because he understands the importance of a rugged individualist. And he's talking about the collective consciousness through this technology, which is completely and totally invasive. Okay? Completely and totally. And giving you this false idea and lie that you're a cyborg. I mean, talk about dangerous. And how we're going to have to do this to fight the robots that we're creating. Totally nuts. You know, one of the things that I didn't talk about as he stands in front of, the little robot kiosk that's going to do the surgery on you is let us never forget, Elon, it was your company Tesla that partnered with CureVac to print up with bio-nanotechnology the you-know-whatskis, everybody. And he also increased his wealth more than any other billionaire during that time period. That's the guy that I want to allow. I don't want to allow any. I wouldn't allow anybody. My brother, who I probably trust more than anybody else in the world. If he said, we got to do it. Sorry, Adam. I know he wouldn't, but no.
That's my intuition, at least. So let's see. And what this presentation is mostly about is attracting smart humans to come and work with us on this problem. So this is not a presentation to raise money or anything like that. We're actually, very well funded. We have a lot of great investors. Some of the smartest people in the world are invested in Neuralink. But we need smart humans to come here and help solve this problem.
I just want everybody to just take a look at what they're recruiting for right there. Firmware, which is coding. Electronics, which spans the gamut from, again, the commercialized stuff that's everywhere right now, whether it be your phone or your TV or your refrigerator. Yes, all the devices. I mean, when we talk about materials, broadly, obviously, one of the ones that we can easily talk about that's kind of obscured there is lithium, because it's going to take lithium to store a lot of the energy that it's going to take for these electronics that are going to be built on that, right? And again, they're already talking about the fact that you have to charge this thing too, by the way, right now. Eventually they're trying to make it so you have to charge it, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, right? Luckily, if you don't charge it at this point, maybe it can't totally enslave your mind. They'll figure a way out. That's why they're talking about materials. User interface is what they're talking about there. Firmware, that's the hardline coding. Software is the graphic user interface that you and I would use in a program like this that would be an overlay, almost like VR. Machining, how are these tools going to be built? Surgery, we often talk about the Internet of Bodies, okay? Clinical, sparsely throughout this, they also talk about psychological damage. And remember, this used for PTSD. That should frighten everybody. Look what this society, Western culture in particular, has sold us on for mental health disorders before. Okay, and not just mental health disorders that are real like PTSD, which are extremely serious. Okay, extremely serious. But encouraging mental illness and disorders for people to get on drugs that are totally nutso. It's their solutions. Magic pills are what they've sold us, and now they're going to sell us magic technology, right? Robotics. Okay? Automation isn't coming, it's here. But it's moving slower in the capacity that we're seeing because they all talked about the self-driving cars and the factories. And yes, that's starting. Go to Arizona, it's happening. Okay? My buddy Tony Cavallo took the ride in the total self-driving car Uber thingy. No problems. I don't know if I would get in one. All right? But what's really happening with the AI is a lot of the creative work is being taken away first. And they didn't warn those people because a lot of the creatives and the people in media and the propaganda circles, they're not going to be necessary. And they were sold that they're really important. You're not. Way to work against humanity. Algorithms, again, you're talking about the types of coding and programming. I shouldn't say, well, I mean, again, you have to put it in there, but the programming of the narratives, of these technologies. Infrastructure, and then ASIC, again, programming language. So a lot of tech dork stuff there, but all extremely important.
So with that, let's proceed.
Hey everyone, my name is DJ. I'm a co-founder and president of Neuralink. And as Elon mentioned, actually we're standing in the middle of our robot space. We have a stage set up, but this is actually where some of the next generation, most advanced surgical robots are being built. So welcome to our space.
It always boggles my mind how humans will literally cheer for their future demise. It reminds me of that scene of the Star Wars series, the one that brings it back, the 1, 2, 3, where Amidala is sitting there and it's like the Republic is just, it's going to die with a bunch of people just cheering it away. That's it. That's the end. And I felt the same way all those years ago, almost 20 years ago now, when Bill Gates is up there at a TED Talk giving his equation, okay, for climate change and CO2, and everybody, just clapping. That's why I put it in Shade the Motion Picture. By the way, all the documentary films, if you haven't watched them yet, if you're new, we're actually growing on YouTube again. I'm speaking to you newbies. Please watch my documentary films. They're free. They're down in the doc section. Shade and Invisible Empire for the big picture stuff, okay? Loose Change, Final Cut, and Fabled Enemies for 9/11. I think they are as important, if not more important today.
It's important to highlight that this technology is not being built in the dark. This is not a secret lab where we're not sharing any of the progress. In fact, we're actually sharing the progress very openly, and as well as also telling you exactly what we're going to be doing. And we're hoping to progress on that as diligently and as safely and as carefully as possible. So
let me just stop this right now. Once again, these are the people that are rolling this out commercially. All right. And they're giving you their timeline, and they've already outlined what they intend to do with it. And they have been extremely successful in pushing forward in increments. Okay. Incrementalism is one of those things that collectivism and authoritarianism thrive on. We're going to watch about a minute more of this, and it looks like this is going to be a series. Looks like it's going to be more than 2 episodes. Who knows? Maybe 3, maybe 4. I had a lot more to say than I thought, but I knew I had a lot to say after I watched this initially.
To start off, 2 years ago when we did our previous fundraising round, we outlined this path and timeline to first human. And we currently have a clinical trials in the US for a product that we call telepathy, which allows users to control phone or computer purely with their thoughts. And you're going to see how we do this and what the impact that this has had. And not only have we launched this clinical trial, but as of today, we have not just 1, but 7 participants, and we have an approval. And we also have an approval to launch this trial in Canada, UK, and the UAE.
So there it is, the expansion. And the next video, you're going to meet those 7 people. And you're going to see the varying degrees of paralysis and ALS that they've been able to overcome in certain ways with this technology and how it's being utilized. And quite frankly, again, I'm going to say it, I am sympathetic to these people. I am sympathetic. And if we were just using it for this type of stuff, I'd probably be on board. But I know these people, and they are outwardly telling us what it is really for. And I do not trust these people, as they have been absolutely, totally, and completely unaccountable for the vast majority of my lifetime in every way, shape, and form. Cheryl, once again, thank you so much for supporting the broadcast. On the way out, guys, could you give it a thumbs up? Give a comment down below. Go check out the alt accounts, not just on X, but we're on Rumble and Rockfin. There are also a couple other links down below, including PayPal, to support the broadcast. Again, no paying gigs. Really need your help now more than ever. And as always, the mantra remains the same. It's not about left or right. Nothing we talked about. Did you hear me say liberal or conservative once? Once today? It is not about left or right. It is about right and wrong, especially on this topic. I absolutely love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side. Stay human.